A Senate subcommittee held a hearing this week called Countering China's Challenge to American AI Leadership. It convened experts to examine the growing rivalry between the U.S. and China in AI and explore how the U.S. can safeguard its advantage. Joining us is the founder and CEO of Martin Capital, Inc., venture capitalist and technology entrepreneur, Rob Martin. Welcome, Rob.
Good to be here.
So, Rob, all four testimonies yesterday said America is leading this race. In what ways is this lead benefiting the U.S. people?
Well, it's really quite extraordinary, and it's a demonstration of the difference between an entrepreneurial system and a top-down system. The Chinese Communist Party is not really capable of innovation in the same way that a bunch of competing entities in Silicon Valley and Austin and Miami can do routinely and constantly do throughout our lifetimes. That's very, very clear in the chip race. China is so far utterly unable to produce the kind of very low nanometer chips that are necessary for this AI competition to go forward. That's why they're so intent on buying even last generation AI chips from the United States. And the truth is, that's not an easy thing to duplicate. There are thousands of companies involved in that supply chain. You can't duplicate all of them. It's just not possible. And while you're doing that, AI is racing ahead. The chip infrastructure is racing ahead. It's just absolutely insurmountable. So China actually needs to open up and quit threatening its neighbors and quit threatening the United States if it wants to freely trade in these devices. And if it can't, it ultimately is going to fail.
Let's say if America lost this AI race, what are the consequences for the average American family if America loses?
Well, it's catastrophic, but not necessarily in the way that we're thinking. China is looking at AI as a productivity tool, largely in the context of its growing demographic catastrophe. It needs to increase the output per unit, and AI is a key means to do that. We've seen estimates that AI could actually increase the productivity of every industrialized economy tenfold over the next 10 years. That wouldn't be that surprising. It's really quite extraordinary. Now, having said that, it's not a super intelligence. It's not some kind of singularity god. And the guys in Silicon Valley who are chasing that are doomed to failure. Anybody who's used ChatGPT or any of the other models, Grok even, which is excellent, knows that this thing is not intelligent. It frequently hallucinates, and it's only as good as the data that's been put into it. So what does that mean for the economy as a whole? Well, China certainly has advantages in deploying power stations. The United States has to catch up, and this administration is clearly there. That's all good. That's all true. But ultimately, China is going to use this more for military applications, more for robotics applications. That potentially changes the balance of power in the first island chain. That's really what we've got to fear from China at this point.
Can you elaborate on why and how this AI can benefit China's military in opposition to Americans' military? And can you elaborate more on this statement you just said?
Well, I think we win that race for the same reason that I just stated, but to some degree, we're crippling ourselves with a lack of power. We're not building power plants at the rate we need to. China's racing ahead of the whole world on that. And for all the talk of solar and wind, that's not really what they're doing. They're mostly putting up a big front on that domestically to be able to sell more of that to us. Well, that doesn't add to base load, and there's nothing more base load intensive than an AI data center. So we've got to build out nuclear. We've got to build out natural gas production. We've got to do those things. That's essential. But in the specific military applications, and you're going to need that increasingly for directed energy weapons and certainly for the AI that will increasingly power all these different military tools, Where China has an advantage is they can direct it from the state level. They're willing to throw resources at it, and they need to make up for deficiencies that are only going to grow over time because of demography. So if they're willing to give greater autonomy to an AI-based system, that to give it the ability to shoot to kill without a human's involvement, that's going to prove to be an advantage. They're going to be able to do some things at a very distinct cost and collateral damage that we aren't going to like, but they're going to be able to do some things that are very harmful to the United States and its allies if we don't keep up and deter that use.
A lot of the China's regulations are top down, but for America, we tend to choose our own path. So for families with kids going into college, if they major in AI, especially AI within the military, those sectors, would that guarantee their career prospects and improve American AI overall?
You know, I'd be very careful about that. The truth is, in the 80s, when I was in middle school and high school, you know, we were all taught that we needed to learn to code or we had no future. And the truth of the matter was that Microsoft came along and created the tools they were telling us to learn how to create. So, you know, most people don't code. Most people are never going to. So I think that that's a great career path, and the people who are gifted in it should absolutely do it. But primarily, AI is a tool to leverage what you're already doing. I can tell you, in my own life, AI has increased my productivity about 5-fold over the last 2 years, which is just extraordinary. And it goes to the bottom line, and it goes to how we do business. But it hasn't reduced my need for employees. It has increased the productivity of those employees. So we get more done with the same number of people. And I think what we're going to see is people need to go into the fields in which they're gifted. Those fields are still mostly going to be there. There'll be a little disruption. But for the most part, we're all going to get better at what we do. And AI is a force multiplier. It dramatically increases how much we're able to do in a given amount of time. That's going to make the world rich. The concerns that we're going to need universal basic income or everybody's going to be starving in the street are just completely misplaced. This is going to make everybody richer, safer, and more secure, assuming we don't give needless advantages to the Chinese Communist Party.
Thank you, Rob Martin.
Good to be here.